This time on Low Boost, we're putting a gauge pod on the A-pillar of our C5 Corvette track car. If you haven't seen in previous videos, I've had a lot of issues with my power steering temperature, so I installed a new rack. I actually put an oil temperature sensor to function as my power steering fluid temperature sensor in the car. But I didn't have an A-pillar gauge pod for it, so I just got one and we're gonna put it in now. So if you haven't seen before, I ran the wire up through here, and in a separate video I showed exactly and in detail how I went right here through and used a coat hanger to snake it in behind here, and now everything's sitting here. So I got this single gauge pod, that's the part number, for the Corvette. We're gonna install this on the car. Hopefully it goes on easy, and that'll look a lot nicer than what we have now. What I wanna do is, before I just had it sitting there, I wanna mount it here. But if you look, if you have it anywhere up from here like that, I feel like my hand, there's only 2 inches of space here, and I really don't like that for a driving position, so I'm actually gonna put it down more so it's out of the way. The problem with that is it's gonna come in contact with this here, and so I'm just gonna try to cut this. I'm gonna score it and cut it out of the way. That way I can mount it back further so it's not a problem. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so I scored it out with the razor blade exactly where I'm gonna have it on here. I'm gonna make a couple more cuts with it a little deeper, and then I might use some scissors to get it off. I'll put a part number for this in the description below. It is an autometer part. I'm just gonna make some more modifications to it like this, just because if it sits if it sits up here like where it's supposed to, that is right in the way. Up here where it's supposed to, that is right in the way of my driving position. Like with a good hand on a steering wheel and a knuckle, that's gonna hit. And on track, I don't want that to be an issue. So if I pull it back just a few inches, it'll be out of the way. So let's do that. Right here, just like that. With it cut out a little better like that, I can kind of figure out where I'm gonna mount it now that it's far enough away from my driving position there. So next up, some of these wires go down, some of them come up. I ended up still tucking them down through here and then feeding them up to here. Now, this all gets tucked back behind this, and the easy thing to do would be to take the hard thing to do would be to take the whole thing off, but I'm not gonna do that. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drill a small hole here and then slice up. And I should be able to feed the wires through and down, and then this should cover everything outside of a small little spot where there might be a slice right here. But the wires will be sitting behind it, so you will hardly see anything. Yeah, the proper way to do this would be to take this off. But I think at some point this whole thing's gonna come out because it's gonna be a race car, so we'll just do it this way. So, pulled it through, just like that. And that'll get tucked behind the gauge pod, because the gauge pod is gonna go here. So with all this tucked away, that is all you'll see, a seam, which I can live with. All right, let's drill it out. Next up, this gauge pod comes with 4 clips. And the instructions call to drill a 3/16 hole in not only the gauge pod itself, but in the pillar that we're installing it on. So I'm just gonna do that at the same time and then install these in there with it already plugged in, and then once it's in, it should be in. Oh my God, I almost sat on the gauge pod. That would have ended everything poorly. So I'm gonna put these in my cup holder, which then will actually be functional for something, right? Because that thing sucks. Pull some of these through. Okay, that's on. Okay. So I'll tuck back there. we see that, that's it. That's how it's gonna sit, right? Hands here, doesn't get in the way. That's where we want it. So, before I do this, I'm gonna just turn the key on to make sure the goddamn thing's plugged in. Yeah, it works. 74. Okay. Install this here like that. It should fit pretty good. That's it right there. So I'm gonna start with this side so you guys can see it. That's where I want it. So I'm gonna drill a hole 3/16, drill through both. 1, 2. Okay. And it says to fit this in. And there's one. Okay. I think I'll round this side out. If this falls off, I'll probably use some 3M tape, but I trust Autometer's decisions on these, so see if you can see that. 1, 2. Okay, next one. This pillar is like flat. It's like covered in the fabric, which looks like leather, but it's not. And then on the other side, it's plastic, and then there's the metal, which I'm not going in the metal. I don't need to. So let's do this one here. 3. Okay, there's 4. I can already see people freaking out. Is that a boost gauge? You got a supercharger turbo in that thing? Look, that's a boost gauge, bro. No, it's not a boost gauge. Okay, people. Steering oil temperature sensor with an Autometer gauge pod. Part number for this is 10193. And like I said, I moved it so I can have my hand here, have it fully be functional, because if I had it back further, it would be in the way. And I just cut that out. Not the end of the world. Looks halfway decent. So there it is. Like on the highway, 63 degrees out, nice cool morning. It's 68. Which, I mean, on a nice hot day, I've pushed it. You can't push it on the street like you would do on a track. Like, there's no comparison. That's why people are like, oh, I've never blown my power steering rack on the street before. Well, it's because you've never taken it to a track. There's so much more heat. You can't replicate it. I can try to find a back road or go around a rotary like 12 times. There's no replicating it. Can't do it safely on the street. But it's good to have it right there. So while I'm driving on the track, I can see when I got to come off. Make sure you guys stay tuned, because next week I'm going to go over my experience at the track with all this stuff that I just did in the car to see actually how it all holds up under stress. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.